Welcome everyone to our very first videocast. Today's topic is going to be practical takeaways for product managers who are considering transitioning over to AI first companies or are launching AI products in their existing companies. And I'm super excited to welcome SK, who is an advisor to Doculus, to our videocast. Welcome, SK.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise in AI?
My name is SK. I'm the Chief Product Officer for AI and Machine Learning for Digitalists. That's it.
Awesome. So, we were talking, SK, and about sort of the biggest gap that exists in your observation when it comes to product management in AI companies. Why don't you share some of your thoughts on that?
In my experience, when I was doing my own startup, a couple of startups, and I was interacting with other startup founders, and a couple of big companies I worked and also with my friends, what I'm seeing, especially in the AI world, when you do a product management in AI world compared to the traditional product management, there's a huge gap between ambition and awareness. In other words, what the companies and the product managers and executives want in terms of ambition versus what does it take to get to the product, the awareness. I think that is a huge gap between the two, and I always feel companies need to really bridge the gap as soon as possible to get to that. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem, and that's what I see as a biggest gap in AI world when you start developing products in comparison to products in the non-AI world.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, one of the things I feel is that there's going to be a sort of a fundamental shift around how product management defines and builds products. And it feels like we're sort of in transition right now, where phase one was being done with monolithic products that took anywhere from 1 to 5 years to build, where there was a huge investment and discipline around gathering customer requirements and having a very, very nuanced understanding of the problem. Companies like Microsoft did great there and have some of the best practices. And then we transitioned to this world of software as a service, right, which was led through agile development. And we boiled everything down to this minimum viable product MVP. And the mantra there was, iterate really, really fast, develop really, really fast, use metrics to figure out what's working. But along the way, we sort of, in my perspective, lost the discipline around having like very, very nuanced understanding of customer pain points. And now with the world of AI, it feels like people and companies are revisiting the best practices and approach.
Yeah.
So let's try to peel the layer of the onion, and let me ask you the first question, which is product management different in AI first companies compared to traditional ones? And what are the key differences in them?
Good question. There are definitely differences between the AI product management and non-AI product management. There's definitely. And if I had to pick just the top three, the most important difference is the data that is used for developing an AI solution. The awareness of what data is required, what data is available, what's the right data, how much of the data, anything connected with the data in terms of even the accuracy and completeness and sparse data. There's so many factors that influence data, and data is such an influencing factor on your AI product. I feel that's one of the first difference in AI product management compared to the non-AI product management. And the product managers need to be very much aware of the influence of data and all aspects related to data. That's first one. Second is, if you see in the last couple of years where everyone wants to do an AI solutions for their company, and there's a huge shortage of right talent available. And that would be my second most important factor for a product manager in the AI world to be aware of, because you won't find the right talent all the time. I know this applies to a non-traditional world too, but the glaring gap is so much in an AI world where you just can't find the right talents, I think. And hence, talent availability would be another most important factor for me. Third factor, there are other factors too, but the third factor, which I would consider as equally important, is picking the right machine learning model or technique. if the product manager and the team do not make collectively the right decision, whether you want to pick one or two or multiple, or are you going to do experimentation of multiple models, or are you going to be using an ensemble of various models, the right judgment call on what machine learning model and technique to be used is such an important factor, which is so different from the traditional non-traditional models compared to the AI model. So these are the three factors. To summarize, data, talent availability, and of course the machine learning models and the awareness of that would be the three top factors for me, which are different in the AI product management world compared to the non-AI product management world.
No, makes a lot of sense. Like as a product manager, typically you have not thought about availability of data, right? So that was never the case, and now you need to. Talent is another way of saying you need to think about the expertise of the team. So who's in the team, who's actually going to build stuff, and then you need to look at yourself and figure out if you have the expertise, because a lot of these AI algorithms and approaches, what to pick and when to pick, and is an important criteria that sort of goes into the secret ingredient of delivering success. So moving on, sort of if you think about the typical product management process, sort of the first step in the process is defining the requirements, or sort of coming up with the MVP. Mm-hmm. Right. So when it comes to the first step, requirements gathering, what are some of the best practices in AI first companies?
Sure. I can think of at least two for now, and I can recommend some other factors. After this blog is over, you guys can check the website. The first one is the product management team has to be aware of what can be solved and what cannot be solved. So the huge gap between what is possible and what is not possible, or in other words, it's called a solution constraint. That is, you have a certain way of doing things, certain techniques available, and those govern what can be solved, what cannot be solved. So I think that would be identifying the factors would be very important. Second best practice would be the quality of data. In other words, high quality of data. Making sure you have a really high quality of data would tremendously enhance the quality of your product management process and also the product itself. When you give it to the customers, they'll be a lot more happy because your product is a lot more accurate and precise, because the data which you gave the model is a lot more of high quality. So that would be another one which I would recommend to product managers to make sure. So one is make sure you have you're aware of what can be solved, what cannot be solved, and make sure you focus on that. And second is you get high quality data to develop a good model.
Yeah, no, this is completely agree with that. I've been in so many conversations where you say, is the business opportunity constrained? Is it capital constrained? Is it regulation constrained? But in the world of AI, you have to actually think about an additional constraint, right? Which is, what's the solution constraint, right? So you have to, as a PM, sort of think about two things before you define your requirements. The first one is, what is the set of solutions from an AI use case perspective that have proven to show 10x returns? So you take the list of those use cases. Then you ask yourself, of those, where is data available inside your organization or outside? And it's the data that SK defined, like the high quality and all the attributes that go with it. So the intersection of available solutions in AI with high quality data, you come up with that subset, and then you say, of this subset, where can I find problems with my existing install base, my customers, or new segments if you're going after, where you can actually solve a 10x problem, which is actually flipping the entire process on its head, right? Mm-hmm. We used to say, just assume that technology can solve a problem, go out there, find a big problem, and then we'll work backwards. But now in the AI first world, you have to think about it very differently. So very profound. So moving along, so let's say you've gone ahead and sort of defined, a problem, and you have data and use cases and technology on the AI side that's available. How do you now sort of think about the development process in terms of interfacing with the extended development team? In this case, you perhaps have an additional stakeholder, a data scientist or the equivalent of that, whatever your company likes to call. And it's really sort of thinking about how do you define user stories, backlogs, sprint planning, and stuff like that. Are there any meaningful differences that PMs need to think about when it comes to the development processes and the interface with the engineering org?
Other than the factors which will influence the product development in AI world, I don't see much of a difference in the product development process, whether it's AI product or non-AI product. The caliber of the product manager and the team connecting with the customer, identifying what the customer wants, and making sure that you do a good planning and do a good cycles. These are all just similar to the regular product management cycles. So in other words, I don't see much of a difference in the development process of an AI product versus non-AI product. Yeah.
Got it. So in terms of sort of prerequisites or core competencies that you feel are must-have for product managers to be successful in AI first world, what comes to mind? And sort of the context or sort of the inspiration for this question came based on my own observation, which is, despite the fact that product managers have strategic sort of leverage in an organization and help define the future of a product, which then defines the success of a business, oftentimes you find PMs who basically are missing some core skills, right? And you think about it, there's no curriculum or sort of education program or training that's available, or there's very little that's available. I know there are some institutes and stuff, but very little that's available. When you think about AI, does that change? What according to you are some of the core competencies and prerequisites for PMs in AI first world?
The traditional core competencies of a product manager in the non-AI world, I think, will remain same for the AI world too. Predominantly, I think all of them are equally important in terms of good communication skills, identifying the stakeholder, planning, having the right team, making sure you communicate what the customers want, and identify the right cycles of development, and then deliver a good product. I think all of those things remain same. But one additional feature I would recommend for a product manager in an AI world, if you really want to become a product manager in an AI world, an additional experience of a prior hands-on implementation experience of a machine learning project or a product would dramatically help you or improve your awareness of what does it take to develop an AI solution. For example, the importance of data, the importance of right machine learning technique or the model, that you would appreciate a lot more if you have prior experience in machine learning. So that would really be my recommendation. If you really say what prerequisites, I think other than the traditional qualifications and talents, a product manager should also focus on having a little bit of a prior experience in AI, so that you would understand the quirkiness of various factors in AI world.
Great, sounds good. So one last question, SK. What's the most sort of fascinating example of a practical application of AI that you've seen, in the recent past that you would like to share with us?
Sure. There's so many fascinating things going on in AI world. Everyone is trying to implement a newer technique for an older data set, or newer data set and newer use case, and I'm every day being surprised about newer AI solutions available. But one, if you really want me to pick one, there's one fascinating research that's going on, and that is the following. In the last 2 years, image processing models using neural networks are being developed. The models are becoming increasingly efficient and accurate, precise and faster. For example, in a patient care or a surveillance situation or autonomous cars, models are being developed to process images and make sense out of it. But in all of these situations, privacy concerns are becoming a problem. People are curious, okay, you are taking pictures of us and you're storing in the cloud and processing it in the cloud, but what about my privacy? So a new area of research that has come out is can we detect human activity without taking images, but using, let's say, Wi-Fi router signals? So the signals that come out of Wi-Fi routers are being used to develop intelligent AI models that will predict human activity like walking, standing, falling down, sitting, opening a door, moving a chair, even to the extent of breathing. If they want to track a patient is breathing or not, you can have intelligent models being defined using Wi-Fi router signals, which is actually very fascinating. I'm expecting in a couple of maybe in a few months, let's say 6 months to 10 months, you would find dramatic papers being published, research being revealed on how these models are becoming very intelligent to figure out human activity without resorting to images, especially in the context of regulations like GDPR and other similar regulations by other countries. The concern for privacy is increasing, and hence models which don't use images but use such Wi-Fi signals would really become more popular. That's what I'm fascinated. I'm quite excited about it.
Wow, super exciting. Yeah. So thanks a lot, SK. This has been really fun for me, and hopefully the listeners enjoyed it as well. Give us some comments and let us know what other topics you would like SK to talk about, and look forward to hearing from everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you everyone for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions, comments, please go ahead and give us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.